All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tim Stahl with Decisions. I'm a sales engineer here with the sales team. Welcome to our lunch and learn. Feel free to use your Q&A or your chat button at the bottom of your Zoom window to ask any questions you may have, and we'll do our best to get you a good answer for that. All right, so we had a few new people join. Just wanted to, again, welcome you to the Lunch and Learn today. If you have any questions you'd like to ask or things you need answered, feel free to use the Q&A button or the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll be monitoring that for anything coming in, and we'll be happy to answer and work with you on any outstanding questions you may have. So again, welcome, and we'll open up the floor for questions. So what I'll do is seeing that a question has not come in yet, I have something that we've done here within the product that we found kind of interesting that I think other folks could use, and I could go ahead and walk through what that looks like. And one of the things we get asked for quite often at Decisions is, I have a list of clients, and that list of clients has a set of rules. Each client has their own set. We're passing some data through Decisions. We need to process that data in certain rules based on which client that is. And I need a way to build a flow that can handle that, and then also build a way to handle creating those new clients and onboarding them as they come in. And what we've designed here, if I pop into my flow, is we have a list here, or something that we call this patient data rule engine. And what this does is we start off with a list of rules. These are our template rules. We have various different ones that are set up for various different payloads of data that come in, and each one does a specific thing. So if we popped into one, for instance, it's looking through, this is health data that's looking through, but it's looking to see, is the user greater than or equal to 18 years old? And if they aren't, then we're looking to see if all of this data is filled out. Because in this case, the user's a minor, and that minor has to have, their next of kin's information filled out for it to be a valid claim through the system. Now, if they're over 18, then the output is true. It doesn't matter. We don't have to check for all this data. And as we traverse down through these, it's various other data as you look through it. We're actually coming through and saying, okay, in this case, we checked the first rule, and now we're seeing, is the guarantor, so that next of kin, are they a minor as well? And we're outputting issues. Do we have insurance IDs with invalid numbers on them? Is there date that they registered before the onset of their illness? So a lot of very basic things you see within the healthcare space. And the idea behind this is, if I open my flow up here, we have this basic and generic workflow here that accepts healthcare related data. So we call it HL7, but we're sending it in a JSON payload, so something that's very standard for a lot of our users and a lot of our clients. And what I'm doing at that point is I'm saying, based on that input, so based on that payload and that client ID that's passed in, we're actually doing a lookup in this truth table that's saying, okay, you gave me this client ID. I'm mapping that to a set of rules that then we will go through, we'll run through, we'll process through, we'll find the exceptions, and we'll finally output whatever those decisions are. Was the rule true? Was it false? And then if it was false, what were the exceptions? What were the issues? And what do we need to fix in that data to actually allow it to process through the system? So if I come through and look, we have our, we had our rule templates, and up here we have our folder with our clients in it, and we have our two different clients. And the reason we separated these out is now I have the ability to add and remove rules in this folder right here. And the next time that workflow fires, it's going to pick that new rule up dynamically. So this becomes very simple for a business user to come in, make modifications to the underlying rules and the rule set, and then push those changes out without having to understand the code behind it, and also not having to understand how to build the workflow. How do I incorporate it in? No, it's just a folder that holds those rules. It's very straightforward. If I wanted to onboard a new client, it's as simple as adding another folder here in our clients and mapping it. And we even automated that process as well. So if we wanted to see what this actually looked like when it runs, I could open up my Postman here, and we actually have some data set aside here that we can pass through this process. So if I let this load here, it'll take just 1 second. If I pop into here, we have I have some payloads ready to go up here that I show. And this one is going to go against our good hospital. So we'll see there's our client ID, and then all of this data. This is all of that healthcare related data sent through in a standardized format. Now, when I hit the send button, we're actually calling that workflow as an API. So I'm pretending that I'm calling this from another system right now to see what that result would be. So if I go ahead and hit send, it's going to process through this, and we'll see that this one comes back and returns that the patient is under 18 and they did not have that emergency contact information filled out. So we're able to receive that error message and know immediately what has actually transpired. Now, if we want to see what happens if one is good, we can come over here and we can hit our send button, and this one should come back. There are no errors in this one. This is a valid payload and can move through. Now, if I wanted to, make sure that this is working and it's not just smoke and mirrors, if I change my client ID here to one that doesn't exist, we'll see it comes back and says invalid client ID. So I've protected myself from, outside people changing that ID and trying to get a different rule set. So again, we can run it again and see it came back and everything operated as it should have. Now, if I went into decisions and said, I need to onboard a new client, how do I set all of this up? Well, if you remember, we have that rule template. So I have a folder that's full of these rules, and these are the ones that can be used for these particular clients. I also, if I move into my flow here, I have one to build a new client right here in the designer. So I can go ahead and run this, and we'll see we get just a simple form that asks for the name of it. So we have our good hospital, our better hospital. Well, why don't we have our happy hospital? You can tell I was really creative the day I built this. We can then say use our rule template, and what that does is that goes out to that folder and pulls all of those rules that are sitting there ready to go and pulls them in here so we can see, okay, these are the ones we're going to run today for this particular hospital. I can go ahead and hit create, and it's going to build. You'll see in the background here, we built out our happy hospital folder. And if I was to look in our truth table that does that connection, we can see that the happy hospital has been added. So now I have a way to look up what folder those rules are in. So now without having to do anything else, I can come back over to Postman. I can pull up my happy hospital and I can go ahead and run. And I can see immediately I'm up and running, and something that would take users hours of work configuring it, building a new flow of designing all of those rules and putting them into the system was done within a matter of seconds. And the reason I like to show this off is the platform is completely open. And because of that, you can use the built-in services we have to automate building other parts of your application. So if you build it in a way that you understand, it's going to have to grow over time, you may have to onboard new clients, you may have to change some of the underlying logic. There are ways to do it in decisions that are dynamic. So that way you can easily make changes in one place that then can be, utilized without having to reinvent the wheel or redesign your platform from scratch. So all of that being said, I just want to kind of show off something that I thought was kind of interesting there. Again, I will open up the floor for any questions anybody has out there. Please feel free to use your Q&A button at the bottom or your chat window there. I'll be happy to answer anything that comes up. I can see the question came in and basically just said we're all experts now, and yes, I agree. We've answered everybody's questions. We're all decisions experts at this point. Part of the decisions developer community. Let's see. One of the other things I could show here as well is if you have multiple decisions instances and you need to synchronize the data between them, we have you may or may not be familiar of the repository server and how that works. And actually, I just showed this to another client the other day. I can actually pull that up and I can walk through what that looks like as well. So let me get everything set up here. Pop in the studio here. And what I have, I just want to make sure they all loaded here. We're going to go ahead and remove this folder and start over here. I'm going to go ahead and manage, delete that folder. So the idea here is I have my development system here. So this one you can see is running on my local machine. I have my quote unquote production system, which is just a demo server that we use from time to time for really showing off our mobile app. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the repo folder on this one as well. And then I have our decisions repository. And you may notice this looks like another decisions instance, but it's very stripped down. It has very specific functionality that is all related to simply moving objects between decisions instances and tracking those objects as they move through it. Now, one of the good things about the repository is it is a decisions instance, and with that comes workflow and rules. So if you start thinking about I need to have more of a continuous development environment, what you can do is you can set up within your systems the ability to actually modify, or not modify, but the ability to actually add tasks to the various things you do within the repository. So maybe some people have the ability to push changes to production, but some people don't. Or maybe there's a code review that has to happen before those changes are checked in. And you can add all that to the system and it will keep track of it just like it does any other workflow, but it's managing your development process. So if I took, for instance, and made a new project over here on my my development environment, oops, hopes to click on the right thing here. I'm gonna say add, create folder at the root, and we're gonna call it, I'll call it the repository demo. So it's a little different. We'll hit create here. So now I have my repository demo folder. I could go in here and actually build out maybe I'll put my designer folder in here. We'll call this entities. Let's get create. So now I can build maybe a workflow here. We'll go ahead and build our demo workflow. So I could go within our standard workflow designer, where everybody's familiar with this, our start and our end step, our canvas in the middle here. I could do things like maybe I want to show a pop-up, and maybe that's it. I just want to say, test and test. Oops. Okay, we'll put it all in caps. That sounds good. And we'll go and connect it to my end step here. And now we have what is a valid workflow. So I'll go ahead and do that. I can go ahead and save this. Maybe I need to also, put a rule in here as well. We'll just create a basic statement rule. I'll just say, if maybe our start time day of the week, maybe it's Wednesday, this is true. So we'll just set up a basic rule here. So basically, if the day of the week's Wednesday, this is going to be true every single time. So now I've got my project. Everything looks great. And I want to move this into production, or I want to start tracking the versions of this within the repository. So to do that, it's actually as simple as once you have your repository set up, so there's a very simple configuration in system and then settings. And then in your designer repository, you simply have to give it the URL of your particular repo and then show the actions. And what that does is allow those actions to be shown in your right-click menus within the Decision Studio. And once that's set up, you'll get this designer repository menu item. And we can go ahead and add, since we haven't done this yet, we actually have to add this to a project. So we have to create a project within Decisions that'll hold all of these entities in this folder. And this is how Decisions knows what works with what project, what elements go with what project. So we'll go ahead and we'll create a new one here, and I'll call it Wednesday demo of repo, because that sounds interesting. We'll go ahead and hit continue. I'm going to tell it to add the folder and the content within the folder. We'll hit next, and we'll see that it pulls out the folder and the rule and the workflow and all of that. We can go ahead and commit those changes. Now, what it's going to do is ask me to log in. So you'll use however you have your authentication set up to the repository server. Ours is actually connected via Active Directory. And it's going to ask me for a comment. So I can say, this is my new amazing project. Don't you all love it? And we'll go ahead and hit commit. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to say there were things, it did not check the folder in, which is interesting. Hang on one second. We will include our folder as well here. Oh, I went one folder down. I think I did it on entities instead of my root level folder here. So we'll go ahead and hit commit. That's going to add it. As you can see, it does a check to make sure that you aren't an idiot like me and click on the wrong thing. It actually will do some of that legwork for you and make sure that you have everything you need before you commit. And now it's actually building that project within the repository. We get our revision number and everything's been added. If I were to come over to the repository here and type Wednesday, for instance, we should, here in just a second, this one takes a little bit. There are a number of projects in this system. We use it internally for quite a bit of testing and things. So take just a second to churn through. But there it is, Wednesday demo of repo. It's the project we just added. We can see the entities that are within that project or the resources, what branch we're on. If we have any summary information, if we've added any details here, that'll show up. And then all of the commits that have been done are right here with whatever those commit messages are. So you can pull it up and see all of that. You can create a branch from it. You can roll back. There's all sorts of things you can do depending on what you need for your particular application. Now, if I wanted to get this pushed into production or pulled into production, what I could do is come over to my production server. And since this is also connected to the repository server, I can simply right click, go to repository, and we can do a checkout project. Now, when I do that, it's going to ask me to authenticate or log into the repo. Oh, I guess I already was over here. I type in Wednesday. That popped up. Wednesday. There we go. It'll find my project right here. I can go ahead and say checkout. And it'll take it just a second here. It'll say here are all the pieces of information that I need for that project. Now what it's going to do is go out to the repository and download all of those various elements, the folders, the entities, the workflows, the rules, whatever you have as part of that project, it's going to bring it down locally. And then when I hit import, it's going to complain because I'm on a different version, but that is okay. We'll just say ignore all that. So it's going to do all that checking that it does with any kind of import. So we'll go ahead and hit continue. And it's going to say, are these the things you wish to import? And it is. So I'll say complete. And we'll see that that folder gets built out over here on the left, and there it is. We've hit OK. And now we have our workflow and our statement rule. So just like that, again, it's a little bit of setup, not a whole lot. We walk you through a lot of it. The check-in and checkout works just like import and export if you're used to doing that. But now you can keep track of these revisions between the instances, and you can also work to automate that process of development to production. So I will take a pause here, take a room read, and see if there are any questions that have come up.
Yeah, hi there, Tim. Just a quick question. With end forms, is there any way to configure them so that they disappear of their own accord?
I believe, let's do something here. I'm going to go ahead and set one up here real quick. Because if they have the thing I'm thinking of, yes. Where is it? Right. There we go. Let's create a basic end form here. Test. Okay, we'll just put thanks. So what we should be able to do is, I believe it's on our outcome rule here. Should be able to add the timer to, give me 1 second here. You found the one thing I don't use very often. I know it's in here somewhere. Should be, where is that control? Interesting, the timer exit may not be within the end form. Just gonna create a regular form and prove out my theory here. Oh, it's interesting. That's the one I was trying to look for right there. Give me just 1 second here. Let me try one thing here. That's not going to work. Interesting. I actually don't see where that functionality is on the end forms. We have a specific component, as you saw over here, this timer form exit, that actually provides that, but I don't see that that's available within the context of an end form.
Right.
Interesting. Now, 1 second here. That may be something. I would say in that case, Alex, put in a request for that, because I think I would say put in a support request for that, because that's interesting. I wasn't aware that wasn't part of the end form context. But if that's something you need, definitely let us know so we can get that in the roadmap for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. looking at one other thing here. Will this allow me to? I want to try something here. Okay, set that up. Say run it at startup. Not like that pause. I was trying to get around it one way using the new active form flows within within 7, but it looks like that isn't gonna. It's not gonna let me use that pause either. It's only gonna use. There's only certain steps that will allow me to use. Yeah, I would go ahead and submit a support ticket for that, and we'll get that on the get that moving through. Yeah, and so I would definitely. I see you just responded. I'm in 6. Yeah, I would definitely get that in as a ticket then, so we can get the. I think it would be as easy as getting the timer form exit step added to the end form context, and then it wouldn't. Then it would be version agnostic. All right, everyone. Well, I will say, if there are no other questions, then I will, just leave it open for another minute or so here. But we do definitely appreciate y'all joining us today, and if nothing else, listening to me rattle on for a half hour. I appreciate it. We'll be more than happy to answer any of the questions that may come up. But with that being said, I guess I will say, from Chesapeake, Virginia, I see we do have one more question here.
Whoops, I guess I have to actually unmute myself to be able to be heard. So I was talking to nobody there. I have a vague memory. I've got a form that has a drop-down box that is being populated by a flow.
Okay.
So there's a drop-down box above it, and depending on what you choose in that drop-down box, it will populate the lower down box with a series of values. Mm-hmm. And so, but one of the things that I'm seeing, like once the form is submitted outside, I'm trying to reference the value, and I'm not seeing it as part of the output. And I have a vague memory that has something to do with because the data name is the same as the data name that's the output from the flow that's populating the drop-down list. And is that making sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Oops.
And so I just can't remember what the trick was to make that thing visible from beyond the form.
Let's do this. Let's test 1 and test 2. And we'll get our button here. Oops, grabbed the wrong thing. So now what I should be able to do is we'll make let's check our data names here. Make this a string. Say the input source is a flow. Create a new one. I'm just going to return a list of values to it. So first one, I'm just going to say, let's see, output, and it's a list of string, and we'll build the array. One, thing two, and we'll say thing three. So now save that. Okay. And what you should have, if you see here, and it looks a little different in 6. Let me see. I don't know if I have 6 open. Hang on. Localhost. Ha. 1 second. That's not it. Does not look like it. Oh, actually did come up. Okay, let's see if I can log in. On my other screen, trying to bring up a 6 instance here that I have on my local machine. While that's churning, what it is you have this. I think it's going to be this flow output data name versus the selected items data name is what's going to. I think what might be throwing it off. Let's see here. Come on, 6. It's taken this instance just a minute to come up. I've been using 7 now for a bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I think in my configuration, I have basically I created a data flow, which is going to basically populate test2 depending on the value of, so the data flow will take in the value of test1, and depending on what that is, it will return a series of values for test2. And then it's test2 that I'm trying to refer to, outside.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think this is broken. Let's do this. Where's my repo? Here, let's go into my form. Let me add the form we were just playing with, and we'll edit it. It didn't save, of course. So
But
I can do.
You're still in 7, right?
Yeah, let's try. Give me 1 second here. Our support folks probably have it open all the time, but since I'm on the other side of the house, I usually just end up using our 7 instance. Just 1 sec here. Luckily, we've got servers all over the place that I can connect to.
That's it. The connected world.
Let's pull this one up. Oh, that's fine. Go there. There we go. All right, go to the studio here. And we'll just go under my apps here. Create a flow. And within this flow, I got to remember the toolbox is on the right now. I've gotten used to it the other way.
Yeah.
We could create, we'll just call it form 1. And that's right, it's canvas. Grid. Oh man, okay. Saving myself a little bit of time. I have a template I can use that has a easier to use grid for purposes of this. There we go. Okay, we'll grab our button out here. We'll say test 1, and we'll say, let's grab the drop down list. Test 1.
Hey,
And,
can I get that CSS file?
sure. Yeah, I can send that to you.
Your controls look nicer than mine.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I can shoot that over to you. String. I'm going to say that test one is going to be static. We're going to have thing one, thing two, oops, two, and thing three. And so the name of this is going to be, we'll call it test one drop down. And the selected item is going to be test one selected. Okay. And then test two, what I'm going to do is we're going to call this, it's also going to be a string list as well. And I'm going to say the data input is that, and this is going to be test two list and test two selected. So that way, test two is going to output, we're going to use this test two list as the item name for our data flow to pass in the list of items for the dropdown. But the selected one, I'm going to call test two selected so I can see the difference there, because otherwise they're going to kind of step on top of each other. And that might be what you're running into.
Okay.
But let's do this. Let's go ahead and build our data flow here. And test flow. Great. Sounds good. And we're gonna I'm just gonna output a list of items here. So we'll say list select from, or not select from flow. Oops. Hit constant. And we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. That's okay. Make sure it kept that. Okay. Well, it says unknown. That makes me think it didn't. Yep, it didn't. Okay. There we go. Okay, so that's always going to output that. Save. Data inputs. We're going to say this is going to refresh test two list and hit OK. And that's going to run based on the test one changing. And we'll save it. So now what I should get out of here, go ahead and ignore these two, is we have our test one and test two selected that come out of the output there.
Right.
So if I debug, hit full, get our form, when I run that, it's going to pop. Why didn't you populate? Hang on, what did I do here? Okay, it didn't save the output of my data flow. 1 second. I know I'm flying through this, but I want to show you the end result there. Unable, yeah, okay. Clear. Let's rebuild it. Output list is list. And constant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there we go. Make sure that I named that right. It's test two list. Okay, good. Save. Okay. Oops. There's that. Okay. It's always great when you do it live and it doesn't work. All right, let's grab that. Okay, test two list, it is a string. Okay, all of that looks right. It's passing out a string list. It means I just have something not typed correctly. Oh, that matched.
If you go into your back into your data flow,
Yeah. I'm just outputting a string list, which is a compatible type with the dropdown. I've done this a million times.
But in your data flow on the form, like I didn't see you do that thing where you update your inputs, and is that unnecessary?
Let's take a look. Maybe I missed it. Let's go down to my test. I've got that. I don't have an input.
Okay, you've got no inputs to it.
No, see, it updated the name. You were right on it. I changed the name of the output within the data flow, and when I did that, that actually breaks.
Okay.
That actually breaks the mapper. That was what it was, I bet. I initially had only called it list, and then I changed it to output list and never hit that update again. Okay. Yep, there you go. Let's do thing 1 and 2. And now if we look at our output data, we can see that we have our 2 is selected. So I think that's probably what it is you'll want to look at your form. Go and edit it here.
Yeah, are you able to export this little project and send it to me so that I can go over it in slow motion?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. I'll do that.
And are there any other questions pending?
Nope, that is it.
So, I mean, I do have, this is kind of like a philosophical question. Like for example, the other day, someone asked me to, I had a form that was all put together in multiple kind of things, but the basic structure was a vertical stack.
Okay.
And then they found that by using the vertical stack, it generated 2 scroll bars, one for the vertical stack and one for the form. And so they decided, well, I don't want the vertical stack anymore. So is there any easy way of getting stuff like out of a vertical stack and onto a regular form, on like back onto the base grid?
I believe so. Let's do,
like, you know, what I ended up kind of doing is I ended up kind of like saving various, like, so inside my vertical stack, I had about 6 different grids. And so what I ended up doing was saving them off as templates and then deleting them.
no, you might be right. I think if I put a couple buttons in here, I think once it's in here, oh no, let me pull it right back out.
Yeah, I guess the thing is that I don't have anywhere to pull it out to, kind of thing. Like, so I basically have to go into I have to go back into my base surface grid and add a bunch of kind of buckets to put things into, which changes the position of everything that's already there. And so you see what I'm saying is kind of
yeah.
happening?
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, if that's basically the, you know, the way it works, I mean, I can live with that. I was just kind of hoping that there would be like a, or maybe that you would tell me in version 7, oh no, it's like we can just drag those things around and no.
No, they're trying to stick to their position in the form. I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's inherent, I think, in how the designer is interpreting what you're doing.
Yeah, because the base canvas, like I have like 100 for the header and 250 for this other control at the bottom, and then in the middle I put my 1 star, which is my vertical stack, and then inside the vertical stack I basically just pile grid upon grid upon grid, like so they all stack up. But when I want to pull them out, basically what I have to do is I have to go back to the base surface and create 6 spaces for my 6 grids. Yep. And then kind of like you know, pull them out. But you know, in the interim, by creating those 6 spaces, it moves the original controls around, kind of thing.
It does. Yeah. No, I see. I do see exactly what you're saying now, and I, unfortunately, I think that's probably going to be how that works with how the form designer operates. I can't think of another way to do that off the top of my head, other than, you know, you were talking about doing templates and all of that, and that's actually a pretty ingenious way to do it as well. I tend to do that on flows when I do things like this too.
Right.
So
Okay,
yeah,
great.
no, yeah, I don't think I have a good answer for you on that one.
Okay. Okay, so but from this, I get this marvelous project and a CSS file.
Yep, I'll
And
send it your way.
the CSS file is looking like it's looking great.
Oh yeah, and it's one that one of our folks on the solutions team created for us. There's not a whole lot to it, but at least it'll give you the buttons that look nice, and yeah, that's no problem at all. I'll shoot that
Okay.
over.
Appreciate that.
Go ahead and export this now. In fact, it's going to bring it with it
There
anyway.
is.
Perfect.
Simple blue.
Yep. Put that somewhere I can get it later. Awesome. Let me one second here. I want to make sure I have your email address right. I won't say it out loud for the recording, but I'll.
Oh, that's fine. You know.
Let me look at my system here real quick. I've got the one at Analogic. Yeah, that's right.
A Potter.
Cool. Yep, gotcha. That is on its way right now.
Appreciate that, Tim.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, thanks for all the questions today. It was good stuff for sure.
No, I love these lunch and learns.
We
now we just got to figure out how I get lunch at the same time.
Yes, same thing.
Here's the lunch. Okay.
That is the project. Cool. And I just went ahead and sent that to you just now.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, I'll have to drop off, but thank you for all the information, and we'll look forward to to more of these.
Sounds great, and I appreciate it, and we'll go ahead and take that as our cue too to sign up for the day. And we appreciate everyone joining, and hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Cheers.
Bye.